going to give it a few minutes to let everyone join us. Let me see where you're all from. Essex, Germany, Ireland, Northwest London, New Jersey, California, London, Canada. South Wales, Minnesota. Excellent. A wide range of locations so far. Going to give it a few moments and let everyone join. So everyone's muted. I will be asking questions throughout the presentation and inviting you to communicate with me via the chat box. You can do that. Lets me know you're still there. Stops me feeling lonely. I'm going to give it one more minute. People are still arriving. Okay, so welcome everyone and thank you for joining me on tonight's workshop. Tonight's workshop is all about emotional pain and inner child healing, how inner child healing can help to reduce emotional pain and increase emotional regulation and emotional intelligence. So the agenda, we're going to look at what we needed as children. I'm going to talk a little bit about Cptsd, that's complex PTSD. Look a little bit at emotional flashbacks. We're going to talk about the limbic system, toxic shame, shame-based feelings. We'll look at how inner child healing can help, what you can do next, and there's a hypnosis session to end. And on the 8th of February, I have a inner child program, a 4-week program starting on the 8th of February. So I'll be telling you about that throughout this workshop. I'll be giving you details about it at the end. So lots of people from all over the world have joined us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. So what we needed as children. So for a child to develop healthily, for healthy psychosocial development, a child needs good enough parents. So good enough parents are going to provide unconditional love and acceptance. They're going to provide patience. They're going to be patient with the child. They're going to be dependable. The child's going to know they can rely on them to get their needs met. They're going to have self-respect. They're going to respect themselves. They're going to be emotionally stable. They're going to have their own sense of individuality. So as babies, we see everything as us pushed out until the age of 3. The child can't tell the difference between themselves and the outside world. They see everything as part of them. They internalize everything. So it's important for a good enough parent to have their own sense of individuality and an internal locus of control. So they're going to be able to take responsibility for themselves and take responsibility for their own responsibilities. So what else will a good enough parent have? Let me know in the chat box what other traits, what other qualities you think a good enough parent should have, what a child would need to develop healthily. Let me know in the chat box. Humor, emotional regulation. Yep, love and respect for the child, absolutely. So I said self-respect. If a parent doesn't respect themselves, they're going to find it very difficult to respect anyone else, especially their own child. Boundaries, absolutely. They're going to need to be able to say no and to, say no and defend their own boundaries and obviously defend the child's boundaries. Healthy habits, yep. Appropriate discipline, yep. Excitement about life. Self-love, absolutely. Non-judgmental, yep. Money, absolutely. The child needs to, know that where their food's coming from, where their next meal's coming from. They need, clothing and a roof over their head. They need to feel secure in their environment. Yeah, patience and encouragement, absolutely. Positive mental attitude. Yep. Self-love, empathy, high emotional intelligence. Yep. Yeah, they need to be accepting. Accountability, yeah, that's a good one. As I said, an internal locus of control. They need to take responsibility. Yeah, a child's going to need encouragement. Absolutely. Routine, that's a good one. Yep. Someone asked for the YouTube channel. I'll be sharing a link to the YouTube channel with you at the end. Yeah, how to co-regulate, absolutely. And as I'll be explaining in the next slide. So as children, we needed to connect with a mothering person who was emotionally regulated, safe and reliable. As many of you said, a child needs to know that they're going to get fed and changed when they cry, that they're going to get comforted, that they're going to be safe in their environment, that they have a stable environment. So they need someone who is safe and reliable. Our emotions can also, project. So when a child is in the womb, they can pick up on what the mother's feeling. The mother's feeling anxious and depressed. Child's going to pick up on that. And the baby is going to become anxious and depressed. So a calm parent is also going to provide external regulation for the baby. So when the baby is upset, when the baby's crying, a calm parent is going to be able to soothe them. They're going to need a calm parent to help them calm down. If they have a parent who, gets angry with the child or gets anxious, because the child's crying a lot, again, the child's going to pick up on that. So a dysregulated parent is going to add to the baby's dysregulation. Yep. So healthy emotions. So all emotions serve a purpose. They're trying to tell us something. They're trying to serve us in some way, trying to help us. Now, anxiety is an emotion, a feeling that many people struggle with, but anxiety is actually part of the fight or flight response. If we never experienced anxiety, there'd be something wrong with us. It's not possible to completely banish anxiety from our lives. So anxiety gets the blood pumping around the body, increases the heart rate so that blood can pump around the body. It gives us energy to either fight or run away. So that's the purpose of anxiety. But other emotions such as sadness is an energy that we discharge in order to heal. So John Bradshaw said that grieving is the healing feeling. So when we're grieving, we are healing. And as we begin to heal, wounds from the childhood, we can start to experience a lot of grief. A lot of grief for what we've lost, a lot of grief for what we never had. Guilt can alert us when we've transgressed our values. So it's important to know what your values are, to get a clear idea of what your values are, and to try and live by those values. Healthy shame can signal our limitations, and joy lets us know when our needs are being met, when we're happy. So parents who are out of touch with their emotions can't model these emotions for their children. As I said previously, the child is looking for a parent to be like a mirror for them. So if that parent is emotionally dysregulated, the child's going to pick up on it. And John Bradshaw said that well-regulated infants learn to soothe themselves by treating themselves the same way their caretakers treated them. So what do you do to soothe yourself? Do you have any kind of things that you do to soothe yourself? Do you have any habits that you use to soothe yourself? Let me know in the chat box. Meditation and breathing. Excellent. Speak during a child. Excellent. You've lost hearing. Can everyone hear me okay? Yoga. Yeah. Hypnosis. Brilliant. These are healthy ways to soothe ourselves. Chocolate is not so healthy. Whilst you're doing that, I'm just checking. Meditation, yep. Pulling your hair, not so healthy. Grounding exercises, brilliant. Writing, that's a good one. Writing, journaling. These are very effective ways that we can heal ourselves, soothe ourselves, and also get in touch with our emotions. Doodling. Yeah, music. Most of you have healthy soothing mechanisms. Many of us learn unhealthy soothing mechanisms in childhood, such as emotional eating as a way to try and suppress our emotions. Obviously, substances. Many people rock. babies, when babies need soothing, they tend to, parents tend to rock them in their arms. So as we grow older, we can try and soothe ourselves that way, which is obviously not as healthy as soothing way as going for a walk in nature or spending time with your pets, as others of you have said. So different emotions are going to have different effects on the body. So when we experience anger, our adrenaline levels increase, blood flows to the hands, so it makes it easier to hit someone. Fear, when we experience fear, we're going to go into the freeze response first, and our attention is going to fixate on the threat. Everyone goes into the freeze response initially, gives us the chance to weigh up the situation, to decide what our next response should be. When we experience love, it's the complete opposite of the fight or flight response. We're going to be calm and we're going to feel happy. And there's actually going to be increased activities in the brain that inhibit worries. When we're surprised, it's interesting that when someone experiences surprise, their eyebrows actually raise up. And the purpose of this is to allow more light to hit the retina, and so that more visual information can be taken in. So, Cptsd. So as children, we're going to internalize everything. If we're growing up in an environment where there's a lot of dysfunction, we're going to internalize that. We're going to think it means there's something wrong with us. It's going to create what's called toxic shame. And if we, grow up in a extremely or fairly dysfunctional environment, it's estimated that as much as 80% of people grow up with some form of dysfunction and therefore develop complex PTSD. And complex PTSD is suffered by prisoners of war and children who grow up in dysfunctional families. So Cptsd is caused by neglect, physical, mental, and emotional abuse, ongoing trauma from which there is no escape, and you need to have a reliance on your caregivers. So as children, we're reliant on our parents to feed and to clothe us. We can't get away. We're stuck with them. So that develops complex PTSD. The symptoms of Cptsd can be anxiety, acting out, becoming narcissistic and abusive ourselves, or acting in through emotional eating, through substance use, self-harm, a constant feeling of unease, like there's something wrong with us. As I said, if you grow up in a dysfunctional environment, you're going to internalize that. You're going to think there's something wrong with you, and you're going to take that into adulthood. You may become codependent, people-pleasing, putting other people's needs before your own. You're going to have low self-esteem and confidence. You're going to constantly be putting yourself down. You may have a negative inner voice, an inner critic that's going to attack you, put you down the same way your parents or caregivers may have done. You're going to avoid relationships, and you're going to have difficulty connecting with people. You're going to suffer from emotional flashbacks and dissociation. So, how many Cptsd symptoms do you have? Let me know in the chat box. 4 or 5. Yeah, I'm going to come to emotional flashbacks in a moment. All of them. Yep, trust issues. Yep, acting in or acting out. So emotional flashbacks. So you asked me what emotional flashbacks are, and now I'm going to tell you. So emotional flashbacks, in his book Cptsd, From Surviving to Thriving, Pete Walker gives his theory on emotional flashbacks. He says they're an amygdala hijacking. Now, the amygdala is part of the limbic system, and it's part of the deals with the emotions, and the limbic system sorts information. I'll be coming to more on the limbic system in a moment, but its purpose is to sort information and to, react to threats. So the limbic system and the amygdala reacts to triggers and threats before the thinking part of the brain has a chance to know what's going on. So when you experience an emotional flashback, it can feel like something, in my own experience, it feels like something's taken over you. It can feel like you're almost like you're possessed, and you're kind of seeing things through a haze. Sometimes, you may black out completely, and then you'll get memories like they were like a dream. So when you experience this amygdala hijacking, you're moving into a fight, flight, freeze response. And because you were young and the trauma was maybe repeated, or you were too young to remember it, you're going to experience the emotion that's related to that trigger and that trauma without remembering the actual event. So in PTSD, there may be a trigger like a car backfiring, and that'll remind someone who's been in a war zone of a gunshot, and it will trigger a flashback. With Cptsd, you're going to experience the emotion that you connected with that old memory, maybe, or memories, and that's going to trigger you to become dysregulated, to experience an emotional flashback. So that's, one theory on emotional flashbacks. Another theory says that they're caused by the inner critic. And emotional flashbacks can often be caused by intimacy, when we're trying to connect with people. And our first experiences of intimacy, of connection with people, would have been through our parents and caregivers. So if if we grew up with dysfunction, if we grew up with trauma, we are going to become triggered by intimacy in the future. As someone else said, trust issues. Yeah, I'm going to come to the 4F response in a moment. It's fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Again, this comes from Pete Walker's theory on it. Officially, I think it's just fight, flight, freeze. And Pete Walker added the fawn response on to explain codependency, which I'm going to come to right now. So we're all going to adopt different trauma types and coping strategies as children who grow up in dysfunctional families. So these defensive styles develop out of our fight, flight, fawn, and freeze response. And children adopt these strategies to try and prevent or escape or reduce the negative effects of further trauma. So the age, type of trauma neglect pattern and genetics may influence the style you adopt. So fight types are going to become narcissistic, they're going to act out. Flight types may become obsessive compulsive. Freeze types may dissociate, and it's actually been shown that when we go into a freeze response, our brain releases all kinds of opioids and things to prepare us for pain or injury that we may be about to incur. And obviously, we can become addicted to these opioids. And 4 types are going to become codependent. So a very small child can't fight back. They can't run away. Freezing is just going to cause them to suffer more damage. So they learn to become codependent, to people please, to put their parents or their caregivers' needs before their own, to serve their parents. Again, it depends on the age. An older child will be able to fight back or run away. Very small, say a baby, isn't going to be able to do anything. So they may dissociate completely and, go off into their own little dream world. Yep. So different types of trauma at all ages can cause us to develop all defensive styles to a varying degree. So if we grow up with good enough parents in a functional environment, we're going to have access to all of these defensive styles. We're going to have access to the fight type, to the flight type, to the freeze response. We're going to be able to use them appropriately. But if we grow up with dysfunction, we're going to overdevelop 1 or 2 of these. So it's common for people to be a fight freeze or a flight freeze or, a freeze fawn. Someone who's a freeze fawn is going to become, most open, most vulnerable to abuse. So the fight response, if developed healthily, is going to enable us to maintain strong boundaries. It's going to enable us to be assertive and aggressive when we need to be. The flight response is going to enable us to know when we need to run. The freeze response is going to enable us to conserve energy and weigh up the situation. And the fawn response is going to give us the ability to listen and compromise. Yep, we all want to thrive, not just survive. Absolutely. So what are your trauma types? Let me know in the chat box what your trauma types are. And whilst you do that, I'm going to get some water. Freeze fawn. Yep. Dissociate freeze. Yep. Inner critic. Yeah. Again, codependency and that fawn response that can come from a feeling like there's something wrong with us, like we need to, put other people first to be accepted, that we need to do things to make people, accept us, to want us around. That can come from, being pushed out, from not feeling accepted as children. Absolutely, we are all good enough. Thank you, Sherry. Someone asked for the YouTube URL, so I'm going to share that with you in the chat box. There we are, YouTube URL is now in the chat box. Some of all, absolutely, as I said, it's healthy to have some of all. You know, you want to have equal access to all of the fight types. It is very hard to undo it, Steve, yes. That is possible. And, you know, the fact that you're here means that you have hope that you can undo it, and that's the first step to undoing. Yep. Okay, so as I said previously, emotional flashbacks are often triggered by intimacy. So traumatized children develop an excessive reliance on their defensive styles, and these can be overly developed as an unconscious attempt to cope with the constant threat of abuse and danger. They can also be used as a means to deal with abandonment, to make us feel loved and cared for. As children, we can also take on family roles, so we may become perfectionists or people pleasers as a way to, you know, feel we matter within the family unit. And children who grow up with attachment issues are often going to struggle to experience intimacy. As I said, you know, your first experiences of intimacy, the people who should have been able to model healthy intimacy for you were your parents. They couldn't do that. Intimacy is going to trigger you as an adult. It's going to cause strong emotional flashbacks. Can cause you to remember how you were abused or neglected as a child. So it's going to move you into the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response, and to try and prevent you from re-experiencing that trauma. So when you were children, you know, you took on these defensive styles as a way to stop you taking on further abuse, or as a way to escape the abuse. You know, as adults, these defensive styles and the coping strategies we learned as children aren't going to help us. They aren't going to protect us. So they're not going to serve us well as adults. So they may cause us to get into dysfunctional relationships. They may cause us to push people away. So that is intimacy and emotional flashbacks. No, but I'll share the link to the YouTube video with you so that you can watch the YouTube video back if you wish. Thank you, Sherry. I hope that you managed to get your son back. So to heal complex trauma and to become emotionally regulated, we need to regulate our limbic system. As I said previously, the amygdala is part of the limbic system. The limbic system supports a variety of functions, including emotion, behavior, long-term memory, olfaction, and emotional life is largely housed in the limbic system. That's the emotional part of the brain. And it critically aids the formation of memories. The limbic system is involved in lower order emotional processing. As I said previously, all information you take in through your senses is going to be processed by this part of the brain first, and this part of the brain is going to decide what to do with that information. So that comes from Wikipedia. So the limbic system is, in the limbic system, time and space are meaningless. So to the limbic part of your brain, it can't tell the time. So something that happened yesterday is going to respond to the same way to something that happened yesterday as it would to something that happened, 30 years ago when you were a child. So to stop emotional flashbacks, to stop emotional dysregulation, we need to regulate the limbic system. Just going to check the chat box. So to regulate the limbic system, we can do breathing exercises such as box breathing, which involves breathing in for the count of 5, holding your breath for the count of 5, breathing out for the count of 5, then holding the space between breaths for the count of 5. We can do 7-11 breathing, breathing in for the count of 7, breathing out for the count of 11. When you breathe in, you want to breathe all the way down into your stomach. You want to notice your stomach rising as you're breathing in, falling as you breathe out. You can also do EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And we can have a regular practice of something that we do, such as meditation or qigong, yoga. All these things are also very good for stretching and stretching the tendons and the fascia, and that's been proven to release trauma from the body. Somatic things that release trauma from the body. We can also go for massages, things like that help us to become more relaxed. And the more you can increase your relaxation, your overall state of relaxation will start to increase. So it's a good idea to have a regular habit, a regular routine of something that you do every day to relax, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Can also become more mindful. Again, by becoming more mindful, we can become more aware of the inner critic. We can become more aware of those negative thoughts, the things that we may have internalized as children. As I said previously, we're going to internalize an abusive parent or caregiver, or even if we were bullied at school, we're going to internalize that. It's going to continue to call us names and put us down. So by becoming more mindful, you can start to notice your thoughts and separate your thoughts and realize what are your thoughts and what have actually been put in your head by someone else. They say that whenever we tell ourselves we should do something or we must do something, these are things that we've taken on, things that other people have put in our heads. Regular mindfulness meditation and hypnosis. As I said previously, reconnect with your emotions. No emotion is good or bad. It's serving a purpose. It's trying to tell you something. So don't be afraid to feel your emotions. See what they're trying to tell you. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it comes from the the Chinese idea of chi energy, and they say that if chi becomes blocked, any point in the body creates bad feelings. So by tapping on various meridian points around the body, we can unblock that chi and feel better. Just checking your comments. Yeah, there are lots of EFT videos on YouTube. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good affirmation there, Sherry. Yep. To say, I am. So, toxic shame. So I mentioned toxic shame earlier, and I mentioned, how shame can help us, stop us from going beyond, what we're ready to do. So shame in itself is not a bad thing. Shame is part of psychosocial development. If we had good enough parents who were predictable, made us feel secure, we learn to develop a state of trust. Between the ages of 15 months and 3 years, as a baby starts to be able to move on their own and walk and move away from their parents, that healthy shame enables them to gradually separate and venture out on their own. But toxic shame is when we internalize dysfunction, when we internalize abuse. We learn that happiness is no longer inside of us, and we start to look outside of ourselves to feel okay, to feel good enough. So when we identify with shame-based models and we have abandonment trauma, again, even just giving a child conditional love by making the child fulfill a certain role to get love, that's still a form of abandonment. Children need unconditional love and acceptance. Negative memories, all these things are going to equal toxic shame. Excellent. Thank you for that, Ellie. So shame-bound feelings. So if we grow up with toxic shame, we're going to become shamed out of our feelings. We're going to be told things like, big boys don't cry. If you're crying, your parents might say, I'll give you something to cry about in a minute. So this is going to cause us to become shamed out of our feelings. And it can cause us to split, can make us feel ashamed when we need help, when we feel angry, assertive, sad, fearful, sexual. Even when we experience joy, we may feel that toxic shame. We may feel like we're not worthy of experiencing joy. So it can cause us to become cut off from our vital parts. We can disown parts of ourselves and project these parts onto others. These disowned parts can become sub-personality. So in order to become whole, in order to reintegrate all of these emotions and feelings, we need to accept all these parts. We need to accept the idea that no one is broken, that every part of us has value and needs to be accepted. As I said previously, every emotion has value and needs to be accepted. Emotions are trying to serve a purpose for us. So reparenting your inner child. So to reparent your inner child, you need to become a good enough parent to yourself. To become a good enough parent, you need to learn self-love and self-compassion. And, as adults, we're often going to treat ourselves and parent ourselves the way we were parented as children. So you need to kind of learn to love yourself. You need to learn to have compassion for yourself. You need to be able to set boundaries, to say no to people, and things that go against your best interests. And you need to feel that you're loved and lovable, that you will never be abandoned or judged harshly. So you need to feel secure in who you are, in your environment. You need to be patient with yourself. You need to learn to forgive yourself. One saying I like is that what happened to you is not your fault, but healing from it is your responsibility. And many people who grow up with dysfunction, we often do things that we regret, that we feel shame for, that we regret doing. And you need to realize that you weren't conscious when you were doing those things. You were acting. Your inner child was acting out. So you need to be able to forgive yourself for that stuff. How can you ever learn all that? I shall come to that in a moment, Laura. Slowly and patiently, yes. Okay, so starting in February, I said the 8th of February, but I was wrong. It's actually the 12th. I have a 4-week inner child program, which is going to consist of 4 group coaching sessions. All the sessions are recorded. So if you miss a session, you can watch the recording back. You can download the recordings and watch them back at a later date. I have a Facebook group where I've put lots of information. I've put my Udemy courses on negative self-talk, on projection, on emotional eating in that Facebook group, so you get access to that. There's going to be weekly exercises and a workbook. It's going to be all about giving yourself that self-love, self-acceptance that you never had as a child. It's going to be integrating all ages of the inner child from infant to adolescent. Doing this kind of work can reduce anxiety, increase self-esteem, confidence, can help you to control your impulses and reconnect with your emotions. And on my website, I'm going to share a link for you in the chat box right now. So on my website, you can read more about the 4-week inner child program right there. And I'm just going to check your comments. Yeah, baby steps. That's very true. My Wing Chun teacher used to tell me that fast is slow and slow is fast. So by taking baby steps, by going slowly, you can make long-lasting progress. If you try and rush these things, you're gonna, not make the progress that you were hoping to make. So as I said, in the chat box, I pasted a link to my 4-week inner child program. You can read more about it on my website. If you want to book a call with me via that link, I will give you the early bird price for the inner child program, which is even cheaper than the price that's listed on my website. People who previously done the program, some feedback from them. After doing the program, I ask everyone to fill in a survey to give feedback on the program. So these are some comments that I've received from people that have done that. And these are some reviews that were left on my Google My Business page by people who done the program. So who wants to try some hypnosis? Let me know in the chat box if you'd like to try some hypnosis. Excellent. Never done hypnosis before? Have any of you ever experienced hypnosis before? Let me know in the chat box if you've ever experienced hypnosis before. Many of you say yes. Okay, so hypnosis is nothing to be scared of. It's a perfectly natural state that we all experience several times during the course of a day. If you ever driven somewhere, gone to your destination, not remembered the journey, that would be an example of hypnosis. If you've ever been watching TV, lost track of time, and when the film or program you were watching finished, and you realized time had flown and it was time for bed, that would be an example of hypnosis. So it's a focused state of attention, and your mind can't tell the difference between a real or an imagined event. So just by imagining ourselves the way we want to be, we can start to become that person. By imagining ourselves meeting our inner child, giving them love and acceptance, we can start to have more love and acceptance for ourselves. So in terms of inner child healing, that's how hypnosis works. That's how hypnosis can help. Isn't meditation kind of like hypnosis? Yeah, it can be. Certainly in a group session like this, it's going to be very much like meditation. Is it similar to EMDR? No, EMDR is eye movement desensitization therapy. There's certainly hypnosis techniques that we use that can kind of replicate EMDR. But no, it's not really similar to EMDR. There's a theory on hypnosis that we're looking to access the theta brainwave state, which we'll have several different brainwave states that we go through during the course of a day. They are, trying to remember them, theta and gamma, which are waking states. Then as we start to relax, we move into alpha, which is just by closing our eyes, we're going to move into the alpha state. And then there's the theta state, which is part of the REM sleep cycle. And it said that if you didn't dream, you'd go mad. So dreams are your mind's way of processing information. And one theory on hypnosis, why it's effective, is because we're accessing that theta state, and it's allowing us to process information. After theta, we have delta, which is part of the deep sleep cycle, and that's where all your muscles are repairing and your body's releasing hormones and things. So that's one theory on hypnosis. So what I'd like to do first of all is some exercises to show you the power of your imagination and the power of your unconscious mind. So what I'd like to do is to hold both your hands out in front of you like so. Turn your left hand with your palm facing up. Take a deep breath in all the way down into your belly, and as you breathe out, allow your eyes to close. With your eyes closed, I'd like you to imagine that in your left hand, we've placed some heavy books. Those books are weighing down on that left hand. To the right hand, we've tied some helium balloons. Those helium balloons are rising up, taking that right hand with them. So the left hand is lowering down as the right hand is rising up. Just imagine that happening. And when some people do this, they say they can actually feel the weight of those books in their left hand, and they can feel their right hand rising higher. Just imagining that now. Then leaving those hands where they are, open your eyes and come back to the present. If you notice the difference between those hands, let me know in the chat box. Yes. Yes. Excellent. Interrupted. Excellent. Okay, so another exercise. I'd like you to once again take a deep breath in, breathing all the way down into your stomach. As you breathe out, allowing your eyes to close. With your eyes closed, I'd like you to imagine yourself walking into your kitchen. There on the side is a nice, juicy citrus. Could be a lemon or orange or a lime, a grapefruit, whatever kind of citrus fruit you like. Imagine picking that fruit up and placing it safely and securely on a cutting. Taking a knife and safely cutting into that fruit. As you're cutting into it, those citrusy aromas are going to fill the air. The juices are going to squirt. They're going to flow down onto that cutting. So imagine that happening. And then cutting into that fruit again. So you're creating a nice bite-sized wedge. Once again, those juices squirting out and those citrusy aromas filling. Then picking up that wedge of fruit, lifting it up towards you. Maybe sniffing it, and then placing it in your mouth and biting down. Those juices exploding in your mouth and running out of your mouth, down your chin, maybe dripping off your chin. And when you're ready, open your eyes, come back to the present. Let me know if doing that exercise made your mouth water. Let me know in the chat box. Excellent. Excellent. So, as I said, your mind can't tell the difference between a real or an imagined event. So, now we'll do some hypnosis to allow you to reconnect with your inner child and to just make yourselves comfortable. When you're ready, take a deep breath in. You breathe out, allowing your eyes to close. Breathing all the way down into that stomach. Just taking a few moments to focus on that. Noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. Maybe the in-breath is slightly cooler than the out-breath. Noticing your stomach rising as you're breathing in, falling as you breathe out. If any thoughts come into your mind, you can just notice. Maybe imagine drifting through your mind like clouds drifting across the sky. That's right. Thoughts can come. Thoughts can all the time becoming more and more relaxed with every breath you take. Every breath just taking you deeper, deeper, entering the familiar state of hypnosis, a state of trance in which anything is possible, which positive change can occur. Allowing yourself to go there, maybe noticing tiny muscles in your forehead just relaxing and releasing. Your forehead just flattens. That relaxation flows down into your eyelids, down into your cheeks and your jaw, flowing down your neck, into your shoulder, down your arms, into your hands, flowing down your body, to your legs and feet. Maybe you can imagine a wave of relaxation going all the way down from the top of your head to the very tips of your toes. Just listening to the sound of my voice. The other sound you hear can allow you to become even more relaxed, even more at ease, allowing your unconscious mind to take more and more control. That part of you is always there, always listening, always looking to keep you safe. You're sleeping and an alarm sounds. You're unconscious knows to wake you. Just having faith, trust in that part of you. As your conscious mind can drift and dream. Just listening to the sound of my voice. Yes. My voice can go with you. My voice can become your voice. The sound of wind in the trees, traffic off in the distance. All the time you're breathing deeply, going deeper and deeper, more and more in it, more and more at ease. Yes. As a person starts to enter a state of hypnosis, a state of trance, they can start to notice the tiny muscles in their arms and legs begin to twitch as they release any tension. They become more and more comfortable, more and more at ease, relaxed. I wonder if you can imagine yourself standing safely and securely in an elevator. In that elevator, there are 3 buttons. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to press the first button. When you press that first button, that relaxation is going to increase. The second button is going to increase that relaxation further, maybe even doubling that relaxation. The third and final button is going to take you all the way down into the very depths of relaxation, trance, very basement of relaxation. And those elevator doors are going to open and you're going to find yourself in a calm and relaxing place. Could be somewhere you've been to before, somewhere completely different, somewhere you've just made. Could be a beautiful sandy beach on a wonderful sunny day. Could be a snowy winter scene, or maybe a wonderful meadow, wonderful plants, flowers, scents in the air. So just pressing that first button now, notice how relaxation increases. Yes. Then the second button, doubling that relaxation. The third and final button, and all the way. Maybe you can remember times in the past, times when you've been completely, totally at ease, most relaxed you've ever been. Maybe this is the most relaxed you've ever been. Those elevator doors open and find yourself in that special place, magical place. You can take a moment to explore that place, to look around. Yes, this place you can allow yourself to really, totally, completely relax and let go. Yes. And I wonder if you can imagine, remember, picture or see the place where you lived as a child. Maybe imagining the street where you lived as a child. Maybe when you were 6 or 7, finding yourself on that street now, looking at the old house, place where you, what colour were the windows and doors? Yes, approaching that place and seeing a small child playing outside that place, maybe in the front garden, in a park or somewhere nearby, maybe playing with a favourite pet, toy. Just imagining yourself approaching that small child and telling them hello, telling them you're from their future, that you're the only person they will never lose. You love and accept completely and totally. Maybe you can imagine yourself bending down, giving that small child a hug, telling them that you will always be here for them, feeling a connection with them, inner child, that younger version of you, sending them warmth and love, accept. Yes. Maybe you can imagine yourself filling up with that self-love and self-acceptance. Maybe getting a signal from your unconscious mind, something that lets you know that you're connecting with that younger version of you. It could be a feeling of warmth, a twitch of a finger or thumb. Connection increases. Yes. You're allowing yourself to experience. Telling that younger version of you anything you need to say, anything that they need to know, Yes. And imagining if you could bring some of that self-love and self-acceptance back to the here and now. How would your life begin to change? What would you note? How would things start to become different for you? Maybe you can see yourself in future situations in calmer, more comfort, acting confidently, calmly, being completely, totally in control of your emotions, noticing what you feel. How will people be interacting with you differently? How will your life begin to change? Really connecting with that future version. Maybe you can imagine yourself stepping into their shoes, seeing through their eyes, feeling what they feel. Yes. Over the coming days and weeks, you can start to notice things that let you know that you have begun to change. You start to notice those things. You can remember this. Maybe smile to yourself either there or now. Yes. In a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. And when I reach the number 5, you can come all the way back to the present, noticing how good you feel. As I begin counting. 1, allowing the feeling to return to your feet. Maybe you'd like to wiggle those toes. 2, as those energies move up your legs. And 3, moving up your body. 4, down your arms, into your hands. On the next number, you can open your eyes, coming all the way back to the present, noticing how good you feel. 5, eyes open, wide awake. Maybe you'd like to stretch and yawn. Notice how good you feel. If you like that, let me know in the chat box. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Kwame. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, Edward. You did like it, but you're not sure what it did. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear. Thank you, Sharon. Excellent. So sometimes you connect with your inner child, you can feel those emotions. As I said, it's good to be able to feel those emotions, to accept those emotions. Carl Jung said, what resists not only persists, but gets stronger. So, as I said, those emotions are trying to tell us something. If we try and fight against them, we're only going to make them stronger. So, by feeling those emotions, seeing if what they're trying to tell us is appropriate or not, we can start to reintegrate them. Yeah, so you can tell your inner child that you love them, that you accept them, that you're glad they were born, that you'll always be there for them. It's okay, yeah, whatever you feel they needed to hear. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, so as I said, if you want to book a call with me, I offer free 1-hour sessions to everyone who comes on my workshops, and you can book a free call with me via the first link in the chat box there. The second link is to the Inner Child program, which is currently on sale on my website. If you book a call with me, I will give you the early bird price on that Inner Child program, which is even less than it's displayed on my website there. And the third link is to my Facebook group, where you can find lots of free stuff. You can find these old workshops, all the old workshop recordings I put in there. Also have videos to help with anxiety. So that's the end of the presentation. So does anyone have any questions, anything you'd like to ask me? Please let me know in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And once again, the YouTube link to the recording of tonight's workshop is there. Okay, any questions, anything at all you'd like to ask me, anything you'd like to know? There's the links again. How to exercise accessing these uncomfortable feelings by yourself. Okay, so I think you're saying, how do you access these uncomfortable feelings by yourself? So meditation is a very good way to start to, make the unconscious conscious by meditating, by sitting, relaxing, taking more time for relaxation. A lot of memories and things will start to come back, and they say that your mind will only let you have those memories when it feels you're ready to handle them. So by meditating, you can start to reconnect with those things. I like to do kind of mindfulness meditation, to sit on the floor cross-legged, maybe listen to some music, and to just focus on the breath. So noticing the in-breath flowing in all the way down into your stomach, and then flowing out back through your nose. As your breath's flowing in, you say to yourself, rising. As you're breathing out, falling. If any thoughts come into your mind, you just label them as thinking. The purpose of meditation isn't to stop thought, it's to become more aware of it. So by doing that, as I said, you can start to detach from your thoughts, to see that you're not your thoughts. And by doing that, you can start to stop that negative self-talk, stop those inner critic attacks, and become more comfortable with those feelings. Thank you. I'm just checking your questions. One moment. Okay, so you said you did CBT and you thought you'd never have PTSD again, but it's come back. Is this normal? yeah, healing isn't like a straight, it's not a straight line. It goes up and down. And, sometimes you can start to feel like you're better, but something may trigger you. The current lockdowns and, the past 2 years, it's been a very difficult, very stressful time for a lot of people. And that's causing a lot of, issues with mental health, obviously isolation, lack of distraction and things. That's causing a lot of people to re-experience, old issues and come up with a lot of anxiety. So yeah, it can come back. You say PTSD. So on my YouTube channel, you will find a video to help with PTSD. It's my most popular video on my YouTube channel. So scroll back through the old videos and have a look at that. You might find that useful. I hope that can help you. But yeah, healing, sometimes there's ups and downs. When we were children, our neuroplasticity was at its highest. So if your traumas from childhood, it can be something very difficult to heal from. And there's going to be all kinds of triggers and things, maybe some things that you've experienced recently that you hadn't dealt with. So. And you said, think of your childhood home. Yeah, that was a bit of a kind of improvised little hypnosis session. So I feel I could have done that better, Moira. But yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, Sherry. Just looking through. How do you distinguish between what you think was abuse and what was actually abuse? My father was very angry with me a lot and used to run up the stairs shouting things like, I'm going to kill him. If it affected you, and if you feel it affected you, then it was bad enough. People feel as children, like we get told that we should respect our parents, respect our elders. Everyone's doing the best they can with what they have. I do believe that, and I, don't know what I do is about blaming parents or, blaming abuse. But if you feel that it affected you negatively, then it was bad enough to be abuse. I don't think you should try to make the distinction between what was abuse and what wasn't abuse. If it had a negative effect on you, it was bad enough. Yep, the work environment is a projection of the family environment. So if we grow up in a dysfunctional family unit, it's going to create a dysfunctional work life. We're going to have issues with authority, issues with managers. As you say, people can make us feel small and vulnerable. Absolutely, that can come from growing up with dysfunction. I used to struggle to keep a job. I had God knows how many jobs by the time I was 18, but it was a lot. Everyone has a different perspective. What matters is what your body is saying at those moments. Good luck all. Absolutely, Sherry, that's very good comment. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. Once again, there are those links. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's important to visit your inner child, and that is what we do on the inner child program. So, to start with, it's about the inner infant. The inner infant needed to feel loved and accepted, needed to feel wanted, needed to feel safe and secure. So that's the first part of the inner child program. And then the inner toddler, the inner toddler obviously still needed to feel wanted and secure, but they needed to feel that they could move out on their own, start to explore things on their own. And then there's the school age child. When we start school, we have lots of issues then, lots of insecurities. First day at school can be very traumatic for the child. So absolutely, you want to visit all ages of your inner child. Yes. That really helps. If it had an effect on you, it's bad enough. Yeah. No problem. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, well, if you want to join a healing group, you can join my Facebook group. That's the last link in the comment I just posted there. Thank you, Chloe. Excellent. Any other questions? Anything else from anyone? Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me. So please look at Meetup and Eventbrite for future workshops. I hope to see you all on future workshops. Again, thank you everyone for joining me. Once again, check out the links in the chat box. First link to book a free call with me. Second link, the Inner Child Program. Third link is my Facebook group. As I said, if you want to book a call, give you a special price on that Inner Child Program, which starts in February. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. And I hope you all have a good evening. And I hope to see you all again. Thank you.